Hi guys, this is my short review of my Jumper T20 Gemini. This video was created with the help of a free text-to-speech tool to let you better understand my voice messages. The only radio I have for comparison is my old free Sky Tyrannis X9D that I have been using for already 10 years now. I have sold my other remote controls so that I can buy this one and only kept the X9D. Let's start with the unboxing. Here we have the quick start manual. The transmitter comes in a hard case with some protectors for the sticks, a neck strap, a USB cable and a few stickers for the flight mode buttons. On my radio there were some fingerprints, but I think that shouldn't bother me too much. The bag has a chemical smell, which will hopefully disappear over time. Generally, the radio feels more comfortable to my hands than my X9D and is also much lighter and smaller. You can fly them with your thumb or with your finger and thumb, although I think the sticks are a bit too short to fly with thumb and finger. But the stick ends can be extended or completely swapped. The rear wheels are easy to turn, but the central position is difficult to feel. In addition, they cannot be moved to the stop with just one finger movement, but have to be turned several times. The buttons SF and SE are too hard to push and would feel much better in metal than in this soft plastic. On the top we have two two-way switches and two three-way switches. I will swap the three-way switches with the two-way switches as I normally have the arming and failsafe switch on the front, and therefore need two-way rather than three-way switches there. The knobs S1 and S2 on the front side do not have a center position. I can't think of any sensible use for the two sliders S3 and S4. In addition, they hook a lot at the top position, which can only indicate poor quality. So if you need a radio with proper sliders, this might not be the right radio for you. The flight mode buttons are a nice idea, but are only useful for pilots who fly in line of sight and have the time to look at the remote control, because they cannot be felt blindly. I may put functions on the buttons that I don't need all the time in flight, such as auto-tune or LED switches, but they are no replacement for a proper three-position switch. The remote control requires two 21700 lithium-ion batteries, which can be mounted in the battery bay via a holder and are not included in the scope of delivery. I bought two INR 21700 cells with 5000 mAh each. When installing, make sure the polarity is correct. The battery cable must be plugged in first, then the battery is inserted into the slot. The batteries have to be slightly fiddled with. Unfortunately, there is no cable duct for the battery cable and I hope that squeezing the cables will not cause any damage. Now the radio is ready to be switched on. First of all, I would like to switch the remote control to mode 1, as I am a classic model pilot. Unfortunately, neither the Quick Start manual provides information on how to set up the gimbals on the hardware side, nor is there a download area on the Jumper RC website. All the manual says about the hardware is the user can change the mode by himself by reversing the gimbals. With an reversed gimbal, however, no mode would change, it would just cause chaos. Probably Jumper RC does mean swapping the gimbals, but there is no further information on this. But even with the gimbals swapped, the channel layout would no longer fit, you would also have to swap the connectors. As there is no further information, I will try to replace the spring and ratchet instead of swapping the whole gimbals. Only the software is described in the manual supplied. Long press that system key to enter the radio setup page, turn to the bottom to mode, and select the corresponding mode. Since at least the software side changeover to another mode is described, I do this first. Now the stick should be in mode 1, and for everything else I'll have to open the radio to see how to deactivate the ratchet for the throttle, and install it on the right stick. After I had bound my receiver using the power cycle 3 times method, I connected my quad to the PC. There I realized that mode 1 is not mode 1, but yaw and roll are reversed. So I switched back to mode 2 and also noticed that the yaw and roll are reversed. Before I set about dismantling the radio, which may not be easy, I asked Jumper RC how best to do this and how to switch to mode 1. Their answer was as insufficiently short as it was strange. RX channel ord, set the order of the 4 basic channels. The new model will take effect after the setting is completed. The default is TAER, the channel order of Spectrum Junior, and AETR is the channel order of Futuber High-Tech. Mode, set the remote control joystick mode. Mode 1 is for Japanese hands, Mode 2 is for American hands. So they gave me the channel assignment for all protocols except Express ELRS. As a test, I changed the channel assignment in Betaflight from AETR to TAER, which is the default setting according to the email. But that doesn't work either, neither for Mode 1 nor for Mode 2, because then the throttle and pitch are reversed. The statement about setting the mode is even more confusing. So I guess I'm Japanese now, and all Mode 2 pilots are American. I'll leave it at that. Changing the channel sequence from AETR to TAER in the remote control did not change anything at all. I can therefore only assume that the cables are connected incorrectly or that there is another hidden setting somewhere that I don't know about. Of course, I could also change the channel assignments for joystick inputs of each model, but that would not change the basic settings of the transmitter. As I'm someone who prefers to have everything set up correctly on the hardware side rather than adjusting everything in the software later, I'd rather try to adjust the gimbals first. To get to the gimbals, I have to disassemble the remote control. This is the first time I'm disassembling the radio, so I don't know much about what I'm doing. The first thing to do, of course, is to remove the battery. Since I read on Oscar Liang's site that there should be 10 screws to be removed, but I only found 6, I suspect that the remaining screws are hidden under the rubber for the handle. Removing these was quite awkward and not RC plane builder friendly, but after trying it myself and using a flat screwdriver, it worked. Now I can remove the 10 screws, for which you need a screwdriver with a suitable diameter, as the holes are quite narrow. Once all 10 screws have been loosened, the remote control unit can be opened. A cable for the module slot is still in the way but can simply be unplugged. There is a metal ratchet on the throttle stick and a white piece of plastic on which the ratchet is placed. Both can be easily unscrewed and screwed back on the opposite side. However, the problem is that the side with the old throttle channel no longer has a spring. Unlike many other remote controls, there doesn't seem to be a mechanism that allows you to simply activate a spring using a screw, so the spring must also be removed from the new throttle stick and somehow fitted to the other side. I seem to have removed all the parts for the pitch spring mechanism from the gimbal on the left, but where should I attach the spring on the right? I know from other remote controls that there should actually be a kind of nose or pin to hold the spring in place. As there is no such thing to be seen, I assume that the spring is to be attached to the metal rod. Let's give that a try. After an hour of struggling and 2 springs destroyed due to overstretching, I finally managed to fit a spring. Jumper RC seems to know the problem and has already included for replacement springs. Now the spring has finally been fitted but is not working properly. So I take another closer look at the first gimbal. After a really close look, I notice that there is still a small plastic part wobbling around. This really seems to be the crucial part. After a bit of wiggling and poking around, I was able to free the plastic part. It really is just a small part that the spring was previously stuck to. So I try to attach the part on the other side. But I can't get it into the holder, nor can I screw it tight. I don't want to bore you with all the attempts, so I'll just give you a quick time lapse. So I have to think about it further. My next option is to disassemble the gimbals to attach the spring. With the gimbals removed, I can actually insert the pin. But it can't be fixed in this position because the screw only serves as a spacer and is not screwed into the pin. The pin keeps falling down. That's why I reinstalled the gimbal. So I had to find a way of somehow inserting the pin that holds the spring into the holder overhead. My last option was to unscrew the gimbal together with the bracket. With the gimbal completely unscrewed, I can easily insert the pin into the holder, and the spring can also be tensioned quite easily. And who would have thought it, a working gimbal? Next, of course, the gimbal has to be mounted again, which I would like to show just in a short time lapse. Now I finally have the throttle on the right stick, but I still haven't solved the problem with the reversed connections for yaw and roll. So I unscrewed the upper board to see how the gimbals are wired. But it looks to me as if the signals for the two potentiometers of each gimbal run through a single signal cable. As I'm not familiar with this and not an expert in electronics, I'd rather leave the remote control as it is and not disassemble it any further. I will then switch to mode 3 in the menu to retain mode 1. Then yaw and roll are reversed, so the stick assignment is the same as for mode 1, even if this is not the most elegant solution. My plan was to simply replace the two-way switches with the three-way switches and keep the order and name of the switches, in other words. Also change the plugs. But unfortunately this does not work. The two-way switch socket really only has plus and minus and no signal cable, so I can't swap the plugs. I swap the switches anyway, but I always have to keep in mind that the marking for SA is now SC and SC-SA. The same applies to SB and SD. Before reassembly, I noticed that an antenna cable had come loose and was not secured. So I put a dot of hot glue on each antenna connection with the hot glue gun so that they can no longer come loose. The manufacturer could have done something like this already. The only thing left to do now is to screw everything back together after this time-consuming, painful procedure. Next time, I know it would probably be easier to just swap the gimbals, including the mount and plug. But since there's no mention of the easiest way to do this, I've wasted so much time with unnecessary trial and error. So the only way I can set the stick assignments correctly, no matter whether in TAER or AETR, and no matter whether in mode 1 or 2, is by setting the remote control to mode 3 instead of mode 1 and to mode 4 instead of mode 2. Whether this is a good solution and solves all problems in the future, will probably become clear when I copy old models to the new remote control. As I fiddled around a lot with the gimbals during my conversion to mode 1, they have become slightly misaligned. Even the basic display of the PWM values shows that at least one stick is no longer centered. At least Jumper RC has included this point in its quick start manual. The manual writes: press and hold system button, scroll to the hardware page. Go to the sticks calibration page to start gimbal and wheel calibration. Press ENT to start calibration. Place all the gimbals, knobs, and side sliders in the middle position and then press ENT key. Move all the gimbals, knobs and side sliders to their respective maximum and minimum positions, and then press the ENT key to complete the calibration. As you can see, channel 2 is now at 0, which was at 2 before. The next problem I have is when trying to charge the radio. When I connect a normal USB-C cable, which I now use to charge everything from my mobile phones to my action cams to my video glasses to my laptop, nothing happens. After a whole night on the charger, I tried to solve the problem. So I searched the internet again for a solution, as the included manual only says that it has a built-in USB charging function, but not at which standard. After some searching, I was able to find out that USB PD chargers are not supported. Seriously, in the year 2024? Luckily, I still have an old cell phone charger lying around, so I can continue to use the remote control. One of the reasons I wanted a new remote control was that I can't charge my X9D via USB. It's too big for me, and I travel a lot. But if I now have to lug around a non-PD charger, I've gained nothing. In the case that I want to keep the remote control, I will also buy a 4-in-1 module so that I can continue to fly my older models with just one remote control. As the T20 Gemini has a fan at the back, the question is, what happens to it with an external module? I have already read this question in some forums, but no one seems to be able to answer it properly. A quick look at the back reveals that the mounting holes for the adapter plate protrude by about 1 mm. Even if you look at the back of the adapter plate, it looks as if spacers are already integrated into the adapter plate. I therefore assume that when the 4-in-1 module is installed, there is enough space between the adapter plate and the fan for the air to circulate sufficiently when the internal module is used. However, I can't be 100% certain yet, but it looks like a good solution. I also noticed on the website that Jumper RC now offers a seat with better switches. The knobs at the front in particular are very wobbly. AliExpress also offers an optimized housing with a lower hook for the harness and more space around the sticks. So there has been a good development. Hopefully Jumper RC will integrate these developments into their finished products and not just offer them as accessories. To learn how to set up the radio, you should better watch another video since I am not yet an expert in Edge TX. But at least I am happy that Edge TX looks almost identical to OpenTX, so I don't have to learn a new firmware. Including tax and service fee for the import, I paid over €200 for the remote control, which is why it definitely belongs in the middle class. I like the design, the shape, the trim switches, and how it feels. However, too many things are too cheaply made, especially all the plastic switches, gimbals, and buttons. Jumper RC advertises its gimbals as highly innovative, but they are mostly made of plastic, have no easy way to switch to mode 1 or 3 or activate the springs, and are not even equipped with hall sensors. Also, there is no protection against dirt getting inside. On mine, there is at least a millimeter of space between the gimbal and the gimbal mount, which means that even small screws could get into the interior. A support or download website with firmwares and a manual is the minimum these days, but Jumper RC has none of this to offer. Even the product description on the website is just a long photo without much text. Also, their YouTube channel only shows a short animation of the gimbals but no explanation on how to set the mode. I was looking for a compact remote control with a built-in ELRS module, and a few more switches than other compact radios like the Radio Master Pocket. That's what the remote control offers, but I can also get it for half the price if I buy without the Gemini module. Then the quality would match the price. Unfortunately, even in 2024, you still only have the choice between a large remote control with lots of switches or a compact one that usually doesn't even have trim switches. Jumper RC is trying to close this gap with the T20. But the remote control is not yet fully developed and is being hyped far too much by YouTubers. I will only be able to say after some time whether I can put the remote control into a state in which it suits me, or whether I would rather buy another one. If anyone knows how to swap at least the USB port for a PD-capable one, please let me know in the comments.